Spinning up, spinning up. There it goes. It says you're live. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Digital Fortress. Hello, Charles. Thanks for joining today. Appreciate it. How you doing, brother?
Hey, hey, hey.
How's it going in Colorado? Is it warm and sunny?
It's always warm and sunny in Colorado. I mean, it's actually windy and cold and raining right now, but outside of that, it's warm and sunny.
It's the same. That's the same thing that happened here in Virginia.
Yeah, I used to live in Virginia. I was in Fairfax and in Blacksburg. And Blacksburg is really crazy boonies. And actually, to get there, you have to drive through West Virginia, which was always fun too.
Wow, you lived almost in a little bit of everywhere out there. So I had to fix my audio on that. And so you lived in Blacksburg, Virginia. My daughters lived in Blacksburg. They went to Virginia Tech.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it's a nice college town. Actually, I live
Yeah.
right outside. I was in Floyd, if you know where that's at.
No, there's a lot of little places around that place.
Yeah. Yeah, those were the BitShares days. They
Yeah.
were they may you live in interesting times.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of country up there, though. It is
Oh
absolutely
yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah. It's real lush. It's really lush. Lots of insects, lots of birds. I love the nature, so it's always fun.
There is a lot of country, a lot of pumpkin chunking. You can get pumpkin launchers during certain times of the year and shoot pumpkins across the cornfields, and a lot of country festivals. There's like fruit stands along the side of the road, vegetable stands. You can get any kind of country goods you want up there. You've kind of lived all over the place, Hawaii and now
Yeah, I was born in
Colorado.
born in Hawaii. I've lived on Maui. Yeah, I was in Makua, a small town in the kind of the core north of the island, and it's nearby the road to Hana. And my dad was a doctor in Kihei, so he lived on the west side of Maui, and he had a private practice there. And so I spent the first 10 years of my life in Maui, and then I moved to Colorado. Then after Colorado, I just went all around the United States, and then I went all around the world. I've been to well over 50 countries, I think 52 now. And I was going to go to more, but the Corona came. I was like, all right, I guess 2020's lost. I'll see everybody in 2021.
Yeah, I wonder how someone goes from, living in Hawaii to Colorado because in Colorado there's probably advertisements to take a vacation in Hawaii, at least up until this year.
Yeah,
You've probably had that going on.
yeah.
And
I mean, it was crazy the first year. Like it snowed, and I'm like, what is coming out of the sky? I don't like this. This is crazy. And everybody always asks, like, why did you leave? I was like, well, I was 9 years old. I couldn't really stay. I mean, I would have stayed if I could, but I wasn't old enough. So I had to learn how to be a cowboy instead.
yeah, I just got notified by my son. He said you have two live streams going. I don't know what that means. What did I do? Help me. I got to talk. Come over to help old man out. So I don't know what I did to cause two live streams to get going, but you know what? We definitely got a lot of folks over in chat. So thank you everyone for joining us. If you got any questions, let us know, and we'll try to get to that. And it's Charles and I just coming on here to shoot the shit. A lot of stuff going on Cardano. Number one thing is we are going for number one. We're going for number one. No good football coach ever said, "Hey guys, we're going to go all the way to the Super Bowl this year just to lose to the Patriots." It just doesn't happen that way, And I'm talking about number one in smart contracts, number one in utility, number one in community, number one in all the main factors of the technology. You know what? If you end up number one on Coin Market Cap, well, that's just a side effect of being number one in all the right areas. So again, not never financial advice here on Digital Fortress, but what do you think, Coach? We're going for number one. I ain't
Well,
messing around.
Ethereum is going for number two. They're really trying to push Ethereum 2 out, and that's not working out so well for them. I think they've been delayed 7 times this year, and they've been trying to ship that since 2017. Yeah, it's hard. We built Cardano to be the kind of platform that I'd want to use to go change the world. And it took us 5 years to get to a point where that platform matured to a point where it really can be useful and actually be used by many people throughout the world in Africa and every other place that matters. And I have particular things I want to do with it, but it's open infrastructure. So everybody gets to use it for their own particular thing. And what's really exciting is that now that Voltaire is out, we have actually two completely independent forms of funding for people to go and build stuff on top of Cardano. There's a C fund and this DC fund. And towards the end of the month, Door is going to tell everybody about how to submit ballots. And then, the first round of funding should be available pretty soon. And, we'll see what happens with that. And then every 6 to 8 weeks, it'll just keep going and going and going and get larger, more people participate. And that's what we call a positive feedback loop. So basically what you put in goes back in and it keeps getting stronger and stronger. And then you wake up and you're at 10 million people. So I think we have the right economics. I think we have the right community, and I think we have the right foundations to work with. And just all the delays in F2 really show how incredibly hard it is to do this stuff. Everybody mocks us. Oh, you're so delayed and this and that. It's like, guys, they were working on proof of stake full year longer than us. They had more money than us, a larger community than us. They had every advantage you could ever imagine. And they're still not where they need to be. And meanwhile, not only are we where we need to be, we have a smart contract model, a governance model. We have a much more rigorous way of displaying the blueprints of the system. And we have a stronger community, I think, in terms of its self-resilience and its ability to kind of commit and invest over long arcs of time. So when you look at these things pound for pound, I think we have much better fundamentals to win. The other thing is it's going to be exciting. Like I just did a video today where I talked about the ERC20 converter. It's a simple little thing for me to go to Cossack or Vacuum or ATIX and say, go build this. But really what that effectively means is that we can take every ERC20 token that's on Ethereum, port it over to Cardano's testnet when the native asset standard comes out. And then because it works in the wallet, anybody on Ethereum who has an ERC20 token can download Dedos and play around with it. So it's a great way of getting user acquisition, also talking to projects about real migration. And when they start realizing they can have vanity addresses and much lower cost transactions and potentially even be able to pay fees in the native asset at some point in the future, I think they'll say, wow, this is a much better home for us. And so there's a lot of these cases that are going to happen in 2021, and that's going to be a fun year. We really get to kick these guys in the teeth and show them how evolved we are and how much stronger we are. And the other thing is like we're not slowing down. Like the science is there, but it's speeding up. We're getting more and more scientists, more and more papers. The code is there and it's speeding up, and we're getting more and more partners coming in as well. And the ecosystem is getting more diverse and globalized, and also it's demonstrating a certain degree of stability. And the price does matter because it actually is directly connected to security. To conduct an attack on Cardano right now, you have to have at least $1.6 billion. That's a pretty expensive attack.
It is. I tried to do the math on this before. I call it a half the distance to the goal problem. By the time you got that $1.6 billion in Cardano that you would need to conduct the attack, the goalpost would move. And then you would have to you would have to collect more, because by the time you bought up $1.6 billion worth of Cardano, of ADA, by the time you bought like 100 million, you would have cleaned out all of the markets. By the time you bought even 10 or 20 million ADA, for example, just an example.
Right.
And then the price would skyrocket. So for you to then get another half the distance to the goal, it's going to double your cost, and you'll never get there. The only thing that would cause a massive increase in the price, and you'd never reach the 51%.
Exactly.
mark.
It's one of those Zeno paradox type of deals. You can never quite reach the turtle. That's where we're at. And it's so just exciting to see that, because it was just on a whiteboard. It was just an idea 5 years ago, and we transmuted $72 million in project financing capital to a $3+ billion ecosystem with hundreds of thousands of people all around the world, and 60 plus papers, tons of code, just a lot of magic. And people don't really get that. They just get into their fanboyism, say nothing's accomplished, or it's just a wallet. It's just so preposterous at this point. It just shows you where they're thinking. Just like recently the Tone Vase thing, where he's like, oh, it's a scam. And then you hear Jimmy Sung just say basically verbal diarrhea about proof of stake. And I'm like, Jimmy, we have all these papers. We kind of explain how the model works. We're happy to talk to you about it. If you want to do a live stream, go read the paper and go line by line, tell us where we're talking bullshit. We'll do that. Let's do it. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll have my scientists do the exact same thing as a rebuttal. But instead, they just say things that are just so categorically false. It makes me feel really happy, because I say, if this is my competition, this is what I got to beat. It's like playing a football game where the other team just smoked a lot of pot and they've been eating nothing but cake for 3 months.
Charles,
this is going to be fun.
You read my mind. I was like, was Tone Vase drunk during that video? I don't know if he was drunk, but he's drinking something. I'm looking at it going, man, what's that guy drinking? Because he wasn't making any sense. It wasn't making any sense. I want to make fun of the guy. He's not here to defend himself, but I don't know how people.
And then he said we have no developers. Like only IO Global's working on it. I was like, ATIX is working on it. Cossack Labs, Vacuum Labs, Tweeg, well-typed runtime verification worked on it. QVIC is working on it. Obviously, we are. Emergo is working on it. The foundation
Emergo's working on it.
Started making developers. And then
Plus
all the stake
3,000
pool
3,000
operators.
people in the Plutus playground over the last year and a half. There's
Yeah,
thousands.
yeah. And then
There's
also all the stake pool operators, they're writing code too. They're creating their own dashboards, they're doing their own experiences and so forth. It's like, come on, man. Just look at the GitHub. We can't do that, right? Because the minute
yeah.
that they actually advertise that, then they've already lost the argument. So I feel very good about our prospects entering into 2021. I think they're very strong. And what's really exciting is to see what the community starts building with the platform. Because, we're going to wake up and have like 1,000 things going on, and then it's going to be impossible. And what's going to happen is we'll do this live stream and you'll ask me about something. I have no idea, because it's
I never
just
heard of
so
that
much.
before, and they've just built like a $10 million project on Cardano.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's going to be so much fun to be in that position. And, we wish Ethereum well and the rest of the gang well. It's just, we have a huge scientific advantage on them, and we have stronger foundations in these guys. And we really thought carefully about a lot of things like on-chain governance. And it's super hard to compete with on-chain governance, because if the token gets really valuable, then you wake up and you got like a multi-billion-dollar VC that's replenishable, that's just sitting around, does nothing but invest in your ecosystem. Meanwhile, Ethereum doesn't have that. Instead, it's like a volunteer basis after the foundation runs out of funds, like Bitcoin. So you end up getting these custodians, and the custodians steer the protocol development in a very particular direction, where they centralize the use and utility points with their business model so they can make money. That's why Liquid exists and Lightning exists and these things the way that they are. I mean, they could easily bring smart contracts to Bitcoin. Even Bitcoin Cash did this with Cash Strip, but they don't do that. Why? Because they like having those use and utility capabilities as off chain in a private company that's centralized, because then they can put a toll model and make money from it. Otherwise, there's no profit. There's nothing to do. Meanwhile, everything is run on chain. Everything is decentralized with us. And we have good economics behind it, and thousands of small businesses floating and entering the ecosystem to provide use and utility and services above and beyond the base layer. So I think the model's broken with what these guys have, and they just don't want to admit it. And you can tell by going to Bitcoin Reddit, the only thing they talk about is price. Will it go up? When moon? When 10,000? When 100,000? Because it's the only thing they can talk about. They're not talking about apps. They're just talking about adoption and people buying the token, people using the token to buy stuff. But they can't talk about, hey, digital identity, because it can't provide that. They can't talk about a multi-asset ledger, because it isn't a multi-asset ledger. And anytime somebody tries to add it in, it's an overlay service. It's some company that's coming in to do that. Meanwhile, we
Yeah.
do it at the base layer in a completely decentralized way, and then they call us centralized. It's like, wow, that's like,
Anyone who's calling Cardano centralized didn't pay attention during the Jormungandr ITN. They didn't pay
I
attention to what
know.
happened. The Jormungandr ITN became the most decentralized, one of the decent technologies I've ever worked with. As far as a blockchain technology, we had 290 block producers, block producing on a regular basis, about 500 to 600 competent pool operators with a total of 1,000 pools. That included duplicative pools and pools that were retired and not fully operational. So you're looking at five to 600 competent pool operators. That is an army. When we
Right.
launched this mainnet, we got nothing to worry about. The
Right.
infrastructure's there, the competence is there, the people have learned, they've trained, they've worked hard, and they want to do this. The motivation is there, and that's
And
what
the
we
the
need.
other thing that the Bitcoin guys don't get is that, math matters, and you can do a very simple projection, and you say, as the price of Bitcoin goes up, the amount of operators of the system, people run substantive mining pools, goes down. And that's, you can chart it. It went from lots of GPU miners and CPU miners back in the day to basically just a few major ASIC operations. As the price of ADA goes up, you end up having the K factor increase, because there's more profit to spread around for those pool operators, which means you end up getting more stake pool operators. So you go from a few hundred to a few thousand to tens of thousands. And when we get the Bitcoin size, even more. So I would rather be in a system that tends towards decentralization as it grows in adoption and price, than a system that tends towards centralization as it goes, as the price increases. Outside of all the environmental upside and the other beautiful incentives we have, that's just basic 101 stuff. And I just can't see a counter argument to it that's been presented outside of, it's a scam, and proof of stake is perpetual motion. And here's a paper that some guy wrote 5 years ago about it. And we always go back to the same thing. Where are we wrong in the models? The people who did read them, professional scientists from major universities like Stanford and Oxford and Cambridge, said they're right enough to accept for the peer review process. They had no financial incentive to say that they're right. In fact, they had every incentive to try to kill the paper The professional cynicism, skepticism is what the scientific method is built on. Instead, year after year, they accepted it and cited it. Over 850 citations on GKL and about, I don't know, 700 on Ouroboros for the first version of it. And so we just keep saying the same thing. Please read the papers and tell us where the security model is wrong before you say it's insecure. They won't. I say, where in the economic model is it wrong? We're more decentralized as the price goes up. You're less decentralized as the price goes up. And if your goal is price appreciation through adoption, then isn't that a good thing? The other thing is we explicitly quantify our security metric, whereas theirs is not. So it's not clear how many billions of dollars worth of ASICs you have to buy to get 51% of the hash power for Bitcoin. You can do a calculation, try to figure it out, but it's a lot more clear and easy to compute for us. You just take the price and divide it by 2, and that's the minimum buy-in to be able to buy enough stake to attack the system. So if we become worth the same as Bitcoin, who the hell has $150 billion or whatever the hell half the market cap is sits today? What is it? Bitcoin at 169?
They're about 160. Yeah, 160 to
Yes.
170.
So it'd be like $80 billion. It's like, okay, I don't know if Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates split the tab, maybe they
Well, I
should go
reckon
and
if you
start.
bought 80 billion ASICs at today's rate, you'll be able to overpower the Bitcoin network.
Yeah,
Although, even if you-
absolutely. Probably
again,
the price of admission, there's a few $1 billion worth of ASIC. So it tends as the use and utility system gets stronger to make the system much, much stronger. And they say, oh, but it's a plutocracy. You say, well, then you can add in other factors over time, like proof of merit. Once you have experts and reputation and other things, you can start biasing the algorithm less about how much token you hold and other factors. That's the power of proof of stake. The finite resource in the system doesn't just have to be the token. It can be other things or a blend of things. And this is what we can research over the next 3 to 5 years to add more dynamicism in the decision function. But it just so happens that the people who hold the token have the greatest concern in the maintenance of the system because they don't want to lose money. It's just like saying the guy who owns the land probably cares the most about the maintenance and the safety of the land because they own it. And if it falls apart, their asset diminishes in value, right? It's a common sense argument. You know you're getting into trouble when you have to contort and bend yourself to make arguments that aren't common sense to support your position. And this is what's happening with Bitcoin. It's like they refuse to upgrade, they refuse to add more utility, and then they just claim that 10 years of history hasn't happened. Even amongst proof of work, there are all these beautiful sharded proof of work protocols that have come out and these beautiful ideas to get rid of greedy mining and like fruit chains and all this stuff. And they just refuse to acknowledge any of it. They're like, no, that doesn't exist. Only thing that exists is this algorithm a lone hacker invented in 2009. And that's it. That's the only thing. All the research doesn't matter. It's like, okay, come on, guys.
Yeah, that's the only one that counts. Well, I tell you, my sons used to run a proof of work miner here until about April of 2018, and we shut it down by October of 2018. It ran for a couple of years before that, and they had to shut it down because we couldn't mine enough tokens to pay for the electricity. And that's just on the micro scale. On a macro scale, these Bitcoin mining personnel are running, they have to fight the same battle, and yes, they can find efficiencies in electricity, but what's the trade-off here, and where's the cutoff? Where's the top upper limit? I don't know where it is. I'm not asking you. I'm just saying, I don't think anyone knows where's the upper limit on the amount of electricity you're going to burn in order to secure that network. 10 years from now, what is it going to be? Twice, 3 times? We don't know. So it could
right.
Be,
and then is that environmentally sustainable? Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
I mean, remember, the only reason you spend the power is to decide who gets the right to advance the network. And then that person has to do the job, and then you start over again.
Yeah.
So if you have a better way of deciding who gets to advance the network, then the entire point of mining goes away. That's simple. And so they're arguing that proof of stake is not a legitimate way of doing that, but the proof is in the pudding. There are POS systems that have been running since 2011, off and on. Purecoin is the first, and then NXT was 2013. And Cardano's coming out, EOS is out. There's all these other things that are out. You can love them or hate them, but then let's talk about specific threat models. And they say, oh, but that's not fair. And the whole reason I made the proof of work video is to say, guys, how is it fair if somebody gets to decide who gets to enter the ecosystem? So if I build a patented ASIC and there's only 3 other guys who make patented ASICs, we get together in a nice little federation. We can decide the entire supply chain of that resource, like De Beers does with diamonds. And then we can just make decisions of, well, Bob gets an ASIC, but Bill doesn't get one. And if Bill
Yeah.
wants to get one, we'll give him 6 months after the ASIC is useless, and we'll mine with it while he's waiting. So they say, well, but that won't happen. Well, hang on a second here. It costs millions of dollars to do the R&D to develop the ASIC. And that R&D is only good for 18 to 24 months. And then you have to do it again. So your onboarding cost to develop the technology is huge. There's no money to build open source ASICs. So you have proprietary patented hardware with a perverse financial incentive for people to consume it themselves instead of sell it to people. Okay, so that is already controlled. Then there's subsidized power. Then there's economy of scale. Where's the counter argument? Where's Blockstream saying no? And if Blockstream cared so much about this, why the fuck aren't they making open source ASICs? Why don't they start an open source project and then say our goal is to make it as popular as possible? You know, I remember Consensus a few years back tried to do a partnership. I think it was either with AMD or NVIDIA to do like some sort of ASIC for Ethereum. But you know, there's no attempt to mass market these things. There's no attempt to make them open source. So they're patented and controlled. So you have a patent and controlled resource, and the people who make them have a perverse incentive not to give them to you. Meanwhile, with ADA, there's use and utility for the token. There's a huge markets. The bigger we get, the stronger the markets come. There's always people entering and leaving. There's people dying. And the estates are liquidating. There's people divesting and diversifying their portfolio. So there will always be that resource available for purchase. So it seems to be a much more egalitarian, like CPU mining or GPU mining, where there were other utilities and uses for those devices. So people would sell them to you as a commodity, as opposed to a single purpose thing. But no, we can't even have that argument. It's a scam. We're idiots. With perpetual motion, proof of stake, fraud. It's like, okay, science doesn't matter, you know, and they won't even want to have an argument with us. They won't even want to read the papers because they can't, or they won't.
I saw exactly what you were talking about firsthand. I saw a manufacturer bragging on Twitter about a particular proof of work device that they were selling. And I immediately replied, I said, oh, that sounds cool. I'm also interested in that project. And I said, hey, where can I buy it? No response. I looked on their website. There's no way to buy it.
Right.
There's no way to buy it. And I'm like, there it is. And this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago when we were wrapping up about 2 years ago, when we were wrapping up the proof of work mining. And I thought, maybe I can get away with doing mining with this custom device. And I couldn't buy it.
Right.
It was not available to me. But you know what? I know hundreds of stake pool operators in Cardano. I know that I'm aware of multiple stake pool operators on Tezos, and that there are stake pool operators in Stellar and other proof of stake systems. But with the proof of work systems, I really don't know anyone who's doing it anymore, although it is happening. But usually when you see pictures of it, it's these giant warehouses full of ASICs. Right. And those things are going to be in a landfill someday, or hopefully they get recycled, because they're going to be obsolete in a couple of years. They won't be able to mine enough Bitcoin to pay for the electricity that they burn. You know, there was something you said earlier I was very curious about, and this is just an example. Do you think, speculatively, could a project like Chainlink run on Cardano?
Yeah, possibly? Yeah, anything can run on Cardano. I mean, it's a beautiful system, and you know, the whole point of the ERC20 converter is just to bring a demographic over, but we'd also look at strategic dApps. I mean, the point of dApps like Chainlink or these other things are not to live in just one infrastructure. They're supposed to be cross-chain and provide use and utility to many systems. And it's kind of silly to think of them as just an Ethereum project or whatever. It's much, much more realistic and reasonable to say, hey, why don't we work on interoperability and bring it here? That's why we reached out to the Litecoin guys and said, hey, let's do NEPA POWs, and then let's start talking around wrapped Litecoin. And then you could use your Litecoin for smart contracts and governance and all kinds of cool things without having to hard fork Litecoin. So we're going to really explore that in 2021 and try to bring as many partners. And it's not just us. The foundation's building a whole team of people whose day job is to think about strategic partners and, you know, bringing other projects in. And then, you know, the argument's very simple. We're much faster, much cheaper, much more secure, easier to work with. We really care about experiences. There's a professional, very strong development team that's there who actually answers your emails. It doesn't send you a tweet and say, talk to the support email, have a nice day. There's actually real people there who are willing to give you the time of day. And, you know, it's a high liquidity ecosystem like all the rest. So I think that from that perspective, Chainlink could definitely come over, but there are many things that can come over. And we're, of course, going to build a whole portfolio of Oracle solutions, stablecoin solutions, DEXs, and things like that over time. And the DC fund will finance those as well. It's important to understand that oftentimes the innovators are the ones who don't win. It's the imitators. You have like the innovators, the imitators, and the idiots. It's always hard to know which one you are. But the innovators, they get slowed down by the fact that they don't have a perfect model. They take a lot of hits, they get a lot of scars, a lot of injuries. And then the imitators come in with the benefit of hindsight, much better models, and they're much more agile. And then they're able to actually capture market share quickly and then win. Probably the canonical example of that, there's two, it's Yahoo versus Google and MySpace versus Facebook. So in both cases, they had enormous network effects to begin with. MySpace at its peak had 100 million users, but they just made a lot of stupid decisions about the way the platform operated that made people dislike it. And then Facebook comes in with a much better model, and then suddenly they win. And the same for Yahoo. It's like they didn't have a lot of focus, and they got everything too quickly. And then Google came and ate their lunch because it just had a better model. So similarly, DeFi is the same way. Right now, we're in the age of innovation. So there's all these super creative projects, but they're making tons of mistakes along the way and losing people's money and not working as well as people would have hoped. And then really professional people are coming in to imitate them and say, okay, how do we be the next MakerDAO or the next Chainlink? And what can we learn from that? And they have a lot more advantages. And if they find the right platform, they're good to go. The advantage of Cardano is we're going to be bringing in millions of people throughout the years who have never been in cryptocurrencies before and are in completely new markets. In this case, Ethiopia and all throughout Africa, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe. And these customers are getting money. These customers have real marketplaces. Like you look at Ethiopia, a fast growing economy, but no stock market. So, who's going to need security tokens? People who are already listed on the New York Stock Exchange, or a small mid-sized business in Ethiopia that has great balance sheet, great fundamentals, but no stock market to list on. Which would you rather invest in? Which one do you think would actually produce more growth for you? So I think pound for pound, the markets we're bringing in are significantly more attractive markets for the Western world to pay attention to. And we have a unique advantage that we spent years in these jurisdictions, building relationships, educating people, getting political connections, meeting heads of state, doing pilot programs. And now the infrastructure is turning on to be able to onboard them. Now it'll take years, 3 to 7 years probably, to get major things in there. But remember, this is not a game that's measured in months. It's a game that's measured in decades. And we're just in the mid 90s, I'd say, right now in the blockchain world. So there's a long way to go, but we'll get there. And when we get there, we plan for all of it. We have the right foundations. We get more decentralized over time. We know how to do the science, and we know how to decentralize the brain. So you don't need Charles to think about all this stuff. You don't have to have a Vitalik in your ecosystem for it to succeed. We have a governance layer that's rapidly evolving. Voltaire will go through so many iterations so quickly. I mean, like every 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to evolve. It's probably our fastest growing project in that respect. And we have a lot of market validation that people care, from the incentivized testnet to the Haskell testnet to what's coming out with Shelley very soon. And we'll see it yet again when the dApps and the native assets come. Every single time people have been cynical or pessimistic about us, we've kicked them in the teeth. And so we're going to just keep fucking doing that until eventually they get it through their head that maybe we're real. And then it's too late.
Goddamn right, we're going to keep kicking them in the teeth. We're going for number
right.
one.
Goddamn
We ain't
right.
fucking around, guys. We ain't fucking around. We're going for number one. And Charles is right. You got to look at the long game on how this is all working out for Cardano and working out for crypto in general. The folks he referred to, the people who need financial systems, the people who need to launch their business on stock markets, they don't care about the latest buzzwords of DeFi and DePi, and they don't care about what a DEX is. The questions coming from the people who need it the most are things like, how can you help me build my business? How can you make life easier? How can you help me be more competitive? Nowhere in any of those sentences did I say the word DeFi or any of the magic buzzwords that are going on in crypto. That's how the rest of the planet Earth operates. Charles, I was thinking of something earlier today. You know who would make the best stake pool operator?
Who?
Someone who runs a restaurant.
Yeah, there we go.
Because they know what pour costs are, and they know what it costs for every tiny little. They know how much a pack of ketchup costs. Mm-hmm. They know how long it takes for the dishwashing machine to run, so that they can get the right number of dishes to make sure they never run out of clean dishes. But they know.
We got a gal who's a stay-at-home mom who's a stake pool operator over in Wyoming, and that's a great example of that. Because, you're a stay-at-home mom, you watch every cost you buy. You know exactly where to shop to save 5 cents for a can of tomato soup, right? And it's the same situation here. I suspect there's probably a restaurant owner or two that or operator that's running a stake pool as well. And eventually we'll get them. But that's the point. These things should be efficient. They pay billions of dollars every year in inflation to run mining pools for Bitcoin. We should certainly pay some money to run our network, but you don't have to pay as much of that money as Bitcoin pays pound for pound to run Cardano. And it should be a commoditized business and something that small business operators run. And it's very ephemeral and transitive, and you have thousands and not tens of thousands of them. And they're always coming and going. Some are going out of business, some are coming into business. And that's the point. That's true decentralization. And all across the world, you have to have many different geographies as well. So if some country bans it, you don't worry about it. With mining, a huge amount of mining power in China. And then you got Andreas saying it's xenophobia, it's racism. That's why people are really upset. No, Andreas, maybe you should admit that Western China has death camps that they put millions of people into. Maybe you should admit that this country disappears people that are politically inconvenient. Maybe you should admit, look at Hong Kong, Andreas. I was there. And look at what's happened. This is not exactly the nicest country when they decide that something is illegal. So if they decide Bitcoin is legal or they're going to nationalize Bitcoin, would you be so comfortable with all those mining pools being seized and taken over by the Chinese government and run by the Chinese? 51% of the hash power being charged of China.
Yeah. And then do people ever wonder, why is electricity so cheap in China? Well, I think they're probably paying the same price for it. They're just paying for it in a different way.
Yeah.
I don't know all the details, but got a pretty good hunch that's the case. Either it's government subsidized, government supported, or the costs are just dispersed throughout the rest of the economy to where you're getting electricity cheap. You're not really getting it that cheap. You're still paying the same price to put that out. And and that's, people want to turn a blind eye. They want to turn a blind eye to it.
They just want to call anybody who opposes their viewpoint racist or stupid or a criminal or something. It's like, look, I got no beef with the Chinese government. They do their thing their way. I do my thing my way. I'm an American, so of course I'm always going to look at things through that lens. And when I was growing up, we killed the communists. We didn't really like the Soviets. They were our enemies. And then we have this weird relationship with China where we buy all their stuff, but then we both hate each other. And for the most part, it was okay, but they're starting to get imperialistic. And where I see it is in Africa. When Zambia and Zimbabwe and these other countries, it's horrible out there, man. They'll actually ship their criminals. The Chinese will ship criminals to work in labor camps, because what China does when they do a deal in Africa, they don't actually hire locals to go build stuff. So when they come and say, well, we want your natural resources, but we'll build roads and hospitals and all these other things. So the government will sign it, take a bunch of money, but then they won't hire Africans to do it. They'll actually ship Chinese to Africa.
Like prisoners?
And then the Chinese, and they empty their prisons, they do all kinds of things. But then after the project's done, they just leave them there. They don't ship them back. So you go to Zambia.
It's like Australia.
It's crazy.
300 years ago.
You see all these camps in Zambia that you drive through and there's Mandarin everywhere and they're speaking Chinese. And they've gotten money, so they start taking over the local government. They'll hire an African guy in the front, but everybody starts working for the Chinese. And they're even taking over the currencies. They're paying these governments to start using Chinese currency instead of the local currencies. So there's a lot of imperialism and mercantilism that's occurring there. And, it's impacting the quality of people's lives tremendously. So you have to have an opinion at some point and say, hey, maybe this isn't the best thing. But it just blows my mind when people say that's not something we should consider. I'm sorry. It's the same with the U.S. government. Would you like the U.S. government running all the Bitcoin mining pools? Come on. We got angry about the Clipper chip, for God's sakes. And so now we're going to just say that that's cool. No, I'm sorry. If it's bad for the U.S., it's bad for China. The whole point of Bitcoin was to transcend nation states and be independent of the whims and wills of the daily affairs and to be neutral to everything. And when you start seeing that the operating model has a geographic bias that can be exploited by that geography, you get really concerned about it. So the whole point of proof of stake was saying create a virtual resource that can move anywhere in the world. If a particular jurisdiction says it's illegal or they want to start cracking down on it, you can move all the operators and resource to another jurisdiction and then completely evade that issue. And the network will continue operating unhindered with the same level of security. You can't do this with proof of work because those mining pools can be seized.
Yeah, I think proof of work has its place in the ecosystem. There's definitely uses for it. There have been papers written by Eglis Kayas on the proof of work backbone and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it has its place, but some folks, some Bitcoin maxis, and I know we're both Bitcoin fans. You know, we got our
Right.
start in Bitcoin. I had a little bit, you get a little bit, and and so,
I have
but
a
the
few.
Bitcoin maxis are almost like flat earthers when it comes to the proof of work versus proof of stake. It's like proof of stake can't work. I had people telling me on Twitter that proof of stake doesn't work. I'm looking at it on my computer. I'm looking at it work on my computer, and I got people
Right.
telling me it's not working. I'm like, are you people retarded? This is not how it works. Don't be a flat earther.
And what bothers me
There's
the
room.
most
There's
about it,
plenty of room in the world for proof of stake and proof of work. There's plenty of room for both. We only captured what 1% of the population of planet Earth so far. So there's plenty of room for both of them.
right? And here's what bothers me the most about it, Rick. It just burns my beans. So, with Algorand just got listed on Coinbase. The minute that happened, I tweeted to the Algorand guys, "Congratulations!" And the Algorand guys are nothing but nice to us, and we're nothing but nice to them. We have a very friendly co-opetition. So occasionally we borrow things from them, they borrow things for us, we learn from each other, but we're very friendly projects, right? Their success is our
And I've
success.
heard you speak well of Silvio before
All the time.
on a
He's a great
regular
guy.
basis.
A great guy. And frankly, I don't even mind the Tezos guys. I just really hate the fact that they flood our Reddits and say horrible things about us all the time.
It's a few bad apples.
Yeah, I
in
know,
there,
right?
but
It
the
is what
rest
it
of
is.
them,
But
the good
overall,
bunch.
I'll be the first to say that they've done great work on the governance side, and there's a lot to learn there.
Mhm.
And so, this is an example of friendliness. Whereas the Bitcoin guys are like, everything but us is criminal. And we are the only ones who deserve to exist. And by any means necessary, these criminals have to be put out of business. They need to go to jail. I mean, like Max Kaiser recently. I don't know what the hell happened with Max. I've known Max and Stacy for 7 years, and we've had a great and friendly relationship. I've had dinner with him multiple times. We have mutual friends. We see each other at events all the time. I broke Ethereum on a show. I broke Cardano on a show. And then suddenly he just turns into like a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist. And then he compares me to Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile, when our firm got some PPP money. And then started running polls of whether we're going to go to jail or not for unlawfully taking PPP money. It was $394,000. It was a 3-week application process with Bank of America and our CFO. They determined we qualified. We took it. Meanwhile, Joe Lubin got $10 million of my tax money for consensus. $10 million. So my tax dollars are being used to subsidize my competitors, and I'm supposed to just like take it in the ass and not also use the money to maintain full employment. We're using the money, 100% of it is going towards payroll. 100% of it is going towards payroll to Americans, and we're not laying anyone off. Consensus laid over 500 people off. We didn't lay anybody off, and we're not going to lay anybody off. But we're the bad actors, and he runs these polls for these things and then says, we're a scam coin. Meanwhile, the guy created MaxCoin and Paycoin, or not Paycoin, but Startcoin. That's it. And he takes money from the Russian government with RT.
I don't get these fuckers. I don't know how you do it, man. How do you put up with all these assholes? I was just like,
you want to burn the whole relationship, Max? 7 fucking years so you can get some ratings so you can have a little Twitter fight with me.
They want the clicks. Fuck those guys.
Fuck me.
You know what? Block them. Don't look back. Fuck you. You know what? Lions don't care what the lamb think, right? And that's what.
But that hurt because I know the guy for 7 years, and he's always been out there. But I think at one point he even asked me to sponsor his show. I think I still have the email somewhere around there. But it's just like. But here's the point: he's gone full maximalist. And so this is what happens when people go down that maximalist tunnel. It's like Tone Vays, Jimmy Song, Adam Back, Max Kaiser. Then everybody's the enemy. You have to burn everybody to the ground. There's no longer a difference of opinion. There's morally right and morally wrong. And we all need to be in jail because we're defrauding and scamming people.
Charles, it's like you just prove the world is round, and I dig my feet in and say, no, it's flat.
I know.
It's
crazy.
flat,
Fucking
bro.
Crazy,
it's flat. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. I don't know how you do it, man. The people talking smack, but I think you like a little bit of smack talking too.
My life is great, man. It's like I live on a beautiful farm. I grow hay. I got dogs. Birds land on my fingers when I hold them out. I eat squash. I grow myself. So it's like it's like everybody think. That's the other thing. I'm so egotistical, right? They come at me so hard on that. It's like, guys, you don't seem to understand. There's a difference between criticism of Charles Hoskinson and criticism of Cardano. You criticize Charles Hoskinson, I does not care. I really don't. Fuck you. It's like I drive a Lamborghini. What the fuck are you going to do to me?
Yeah,
Come
exactly.
on, my life is great.
Yeah.
All right. But when you criticize Cardano, you are calling every single person in an ecosystem that I helped build a criminal, stupid, defrauded, and I'm going to kick you in the teeth because I have to stand up for my community. These are my people. They deserve somebody who's going to stand up for them, say, no, you're not stupid. Yes, you're worth the time of day. You're part of something real and legitimate. They forget people have gotten the ADA logo tattooed on their body. They've named their children ADA. This is not just a fun little weekend endeavor from people. Some people are basing their livelihood and their lifestyle in this ecosystem. So what am I supposed to do when, somebody comes by and says, oh, Cardano's a scam, especially if that person has 200,000 followers on Twitter, or that person's a marketing director of a company in our space and saying that we're conducting Ponzi schemes in China, or we're defrauding somebody somewhere with no evidence whatsoever. I'm going to tell them a pound sand and I'm going to kick them in the face as hard as I can. And then they say I'm egotistical as a reply to that. It's like, come on, guys. I don't need that. I'm at a point in my career, in my life, that if I wanted to retire and just go do something else, I could. The only reason I stay is because we have constructed something with Cardano that legitimately can give an economic identity to 3 billion people who didn't have one. And TED 2014, I did a speech and I said, this is the point of the technology. And I put my money where my mouth was, my time where my mouth was, and I spent years and years and years and years building something that actually can do what I was talking about. And now it's here. And we're in Africa. We're in Georgia. We're not just doing academic things. It's like there's real human beings using the project. We're bidding on projects that have millions of users. And we're going to wake up one day and it's all going to be there. That's what I signed up for. Then I look at Bitcoin and I ask, well, what the fuck are the morals of these people? They're willing to work with the government. They're willing to accept regulation. They're selling tools to the Secret Service. They're doing all kinds of shenanigans. So they're obviously not here for the anarchistic capital side. They're here to build real businesses. That's fine. But if you're going to do that, then why is my business criticized? And by the way, we're doing the things we claim we were going to do, and we're following the philosophy we claim. Every dollar of PPP money is going towards employees who write code and write papers that are all open source and patent free that my competitors can use as much as I can. So the US government is subsidizing the development of Cardano from that respect, but that's immoral. It's like, they can't even fucking think it through. It's so crazy.
Yeah. Charles,
it's so
I got to
crazy.
for the first time in the history since I can remember, is the government actually kind of did something right, and that is, in the past, these bailouts, and again, old Ron Paul fan, right? I'm a card-carrying member since 2008.
I got the button right here, man.
You dank, oh man, hell yeah. You know what, Charles? I got this. I'm going to tangent here for a second. I wanted to show you this. I've got my Daedalus paper wallet from Plutus Fest.
I remember signing that. That was December of 2018.
Yep, December of 2018. On linen, and I will never sell this. This is not ever going to go on Amazon. Okay, that's my baby right there. It's a linen that'll be around for like hundreds of years. The first Charles Hoskinson signed version of it. But anyway, the U.S. government finally did something a little bit right, and instead of just doling the money out at the highest levels to the banks at very little or no interest rate, which happened in 2008 and in previous, over and over and over again, over the thousands of years. I was watching a documentary related to it a while back, and they said, well, let's give it to people, okay? Right. They said, let's give it to people and businesses. Instead of have the central bank print it and the central bank give it to all their buddies, they kind of did a half and half thing. They said, let's kind of split the dough here. Let's put some at the top and then take another chunk and give it out to people and to businesses. Everyone got a cut of that, and I still think it was kind of a reckless thing to do, but it's kind of like,
I was opposed to the whole program. I said we shouldn't do it because the problem is it introduces a moral hazard. And of course, my statements were taken out of context when I did the Major League Baseball steroids thing. My whole point of that is when you create a competitive environment that incentivizes people to do things, you should just expect them to do it then. Well, similarly here, they created a $6 trillion bailout. And then, everybody was put in a position where if you don't take the money, your competitors are going to take the money. So you should probably take it. But here's the point. There's oversight, checks, and balances to it. We didn't just go and take money from a pool. We had to apply for it and meet a set of criteria and oversight from Bank of America and the federal program. And we did. we can't lay people off after taking it. The money can't go to me, it goes to the employees, and we have to maintain the employment level. So by doing it, it ensures that I don't fire people. What they don't understand is like they think this is just the Cardano company. I have over 270 people in the IO family. About half work on Cardano. The half don't. Now, if your consulting pipeline, PwC comes to you and says it's probably going to go down by 70% to 80% over the next 12 to 24 months because you're classified as discretionary spending for companies. They don't have to upgrade to a blockchain solution. So they're going to hold because the economy is bad. So that means out of every dollar I used to make, I'm only going to make 30 cents for that business unit. Now, as a business operator, what I normally am supposed to do, what business school would teach you to do, is lay off the entire division, downscale substantially. The point of this program was so companies wouldn't do that. They would hold on to their people so we wouldn't go into a depression and we could have a V-shaped recovery instead of a fucking depression. But then these idiots run around, they say the only people who should have any of that money at all are restaurants. Okay, so let's say we keep the restaurants open. If we go into a depression because everybody else got laid off, who will go to the
How
restaurant?
many of them fucking jackwagons that's criticized you ever been the CEO of a major company?
Never.
Never.
But Max Kaiser has been in the business world for probably 3 decades now. He knows better about this whole situation. And the other thing is he picks on the guy who took the least and is actually using the money to keep full employment, whereas the guy who laid off 500 people and got an order of magnitude more, no criticism. It just shows the insanity and the hollowness of some of these people inside the space. But you expect this. I saw Bernie Sanders run around for years. Millionaires and billionaires are evil. We all have to pay 70% taxes, and everybody should get everything for free. And wah. Society's rigged. It's like, okay, people say stuff, they do stuff, they're talking their book, fine. That's the way it is. But it doesn't stop us from our mission. And it doesn't stop the reality that the longer that my business stays in business, the better it is for every single person in the cryptocurrency space. The people will never concede this. I say, guys, if I'm writing scientific papers every day that are patent free and in many of which are theoretical, that your research teams can use just as well as my research teams. Like, for example, Sonics. It's a zero knowledge proof system. It's not Cardano. It's a zero knowledge proof system significantly better than the one in Zcash. So the mere existence of this gives an upgrade path for Zcash if they want to move in that direction. Did they pay anything for it? No. Do they have to license it from me? No. Is there a patent on it? No, it's open. So isn't it a good thing that an entity that creates papers like this stays in business and can scale it up? Because all of that research is available to the entire industry. The same for Adrestia, the Cardano wallet backend. We decoupled it. It's just as good for Bitcoin as it is for Cardano, and it probably will end up linking it to a Bitcoin node at some point. And then that means you have a wallet backend with a perfect coin selection, input selection algorithm that's built with formal methods that's available for every exchange and every person who builds a Bitcoin wallet, for example. Or the Nipapow's research, which we can use in Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash or even Bitcoin itself. And it gives them a sidechains approach with no security downside. And now they can augment and extend their ecosystems without substantial material changes. Do they have to license that? No. They have to pay a royalty for that? No. It's patent free. So why is that bad? Let's say you hate Cardano, you think it's the worst thing in the entire world. The fact that a company exists that's doing this type of work, how is that bad? Then let's say you're a programmer. All the enhancements that we did for Haskell, the compilation of Haskell to WebAssembly, the compilation of Haskell to JavaScript, all the improvements we made for Haskell applications in Windows, so you have a much better experience with Haskell, which has historically been a very weak component of the Haskell ecosystem. How is that bad? That's all free and open and a contribution to the community. Or the donations we've done to universities, the people who've gotten their PhDs as a consequence of our organization. When we subsidize these labs, it includes funding for graduate students and postdocs. There are a lot of people who got their PhD on our dime. So they went to university and now are got a PhD in computer science or another topic because we paid for that. And the longer we stay around, the more that happens. How is that bad? You could hate Cardano and think it's a total scam and it's just bad model. But if we keep making money, we keep doing that. Isn't that beneficial to everybody? But no, they can't get there in their mind. They just can't get there, Rick. It's the craziest thing. I've never been in an industry like this. There's all these fanboys in Apple who hate Microsoft and Microsoft who hate Apple. but they have to admit that the existence of a competitor makes their product better. Surface forces Macs to get better, because if they don't, eventually the Surface line will kill the Macs.
Yep.
The advancements of Windows forces Linux to get better, and Cortana makes Siri better. Alexa makes Siri. Competitiveness makes things better. So
I've
it's
watched it
nice to
every
have
year. They steal from each other. I mean, we call it steal from each other, but they take those ideas and they say, you know what, I can do that. I can do it better. They do it. I've seen them do it with the putting paneling your windows left, right, and Mac. Or actually, I saw that on Windows first, and then Mac tried to do it better, and they didn't. And I'm a Mac guy, and I'll tell you, they didn't do it right. Windows still does it better, but
right.
it's the same thing. But you're learning cryptocurrency, so you know yeah, Charles, I got to hit it to you. You really you put up with a lot of crap, and you're a stand-up guy because you stand up for your employees. You fight you fight for their behalf. If someone goes after your employees, you're a bear. You will take it on the chin sometimes. You're just okay. You got to put up with some shit. I've seen you do that too. But I appreciate you just putting it out there and just telling it like it is, so people have a
you
better
have to.
understanding, better
You have to.
perspective of what you
And I'm just getting to my limit with all of it, Rick. That's why I took a break from Twitter. I was like, that's it, I'm done. The whole MLM Ponzi thing, and then people mass posting I'm a soggy wet pigeon, and then the way the media treated that, it was just blew my mind. It's like, guys, you're saying that the only reason the price of ADA went up is because some people in Western China were defrauding farmers. First off, if they're defrauding farmers, they're not buying ADA. They're just taking the money and pocketing it. So how would that have any impact on the price of ADA at all? And then second, you're completely ignoring the fact that we just had a 10,000 person event and all these people come and speak, and we've hit deadlines that people didn't think we were going to hit.
You had as many people's consensus or something like that. It was
It's
crazy.
larger than consensus.
Consensus.
And then they just like, no, it's gotta be the scammers in China defrauding farmers. That you must be behind it, even though it's a quarantine and you don't speak Chinese and you have no infrastructure there, and you have no relationship with these people. They're clearly illegally doing things. And it's crazy. Like the other day, these YouTube giveaway scams. There was a Serbian. I got a story about this because I got a death threat from this. There was a Serbian podcaster who does he's like I don't know, PewDiePie in Serbia. I'm not really sure, and his handle is like Lux27, and his channel got hacked. And somebody sold the credentials, or the hacker was this person, used it to post giveaway scams where they take a video of me and they put the little giveaway scam. We've been plagued with these damn things for like 2 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
So this Lux27 guy, because he doesn't speak English, he doesn't know what the hell is going on, thinks that I did it because it's my video and it's my face. So he told all of his audience, he had 275,000 people, that I am the hacker and I'm a scammer. So then if you go to my YouTube channel, you see all these Serbian comments the last 3-4 days in the comment section, how I stole this guy's channel. And then people start sending me emails saying they're part of the Serbian mafia, and if I don't give the channel back, they're going to murder me.
Holy shit. Dude,
I know.
you gotta, dude, they'll fucking kill you.
I know. And I'm just like, Jesus
hell?
fucking Christ. You guys do basic fucking research. What, Elon Musk and Bill Gates are behind it too?
You better get some Kevlar, bro.
It's the craziest thing. It's just like the shit you deal with in this industry is unbelievable. And the things that people say and do. And what they don't understand is, by saying and behaving this way, where does your commercial upside come from? You're trying to convince governments and Fortune 500 companies and conservative decision makers to come into your space. And then you're basically creating an environment that when they pick a choice, everybody who's not that choice will then attack the company, call them a scam, attack their customers, and so forth.
That's what trips me out about crypto. Crypto is crypto's own worst enemy. The people in crypto can be crypto's own worst enemy with the shenanigans that they do. I want mass adoption. In the meantime, I'm going to run a scam. Not it's not all the same person. It's different people doing different things, right? So sometimes people in crypto can be crypto's worst enemy, and instead of trying to promote crypto to the rest of the world, they're going to turn around and conduct infighting, which we end up doing ourselves too. But it's like, Jesus. Do you defend yourself, or you just keep freaking taking an ass whooping?
I just don't know what to do anymore. You can't win. If you defend yourself, you're egotistical and arrogant, narcissistic.
It's a slugfest.
And then if you don't defend yourself, then that's the narrative. You're accepting that that's the narrative, and therefore you are that thing. So it's just like, what the fuck do? You can't defend yourself. You can defend yourself. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're always going to lose in some respect.
You know, when I was at work a couple of days ago, the loudest guy in the room said at one point after all these scams came out, the loudest guy in the room said, he goes, "Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme," and I thought to myself, okay, just keep your mouth. I mean, I thought
Hmm.
Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. Okay, Bitcoin is a thing, and some people use it for a Ponzi scheme. But instead of presenting an argument, I said, okay, you know what? You're not going to change his mind. Just wait it out. Be patient. Play the long game. We'll be okay. We'll be okay.
Right.
So Charles, I gotta ask you, bruh. All right, after you feel better now, you get that out of your system.
Therapy with Rick, right?
I
You
feel
go,
better now.
go. I got a Tai Chi coach coming in on Thursday next week. Every week I'm going to do Tai Chi. I'm doing meditation. I used to sit in a flotation tank, but after Corona hit, I can't do that right now. So I got
That
to
makes
build one
me
from
think of
scratch.
Altered States. You know that old freaky movie?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. And
freaky.
actually, there's a term for that now. It's called the altered state economy. And there's like all these Silicon Valley guys who are doing like flow training are selling that buzzword, and they say it's going to be a $25 billion a year economy in 2025.
What they is does it have to do with the float tanks or
Float tanks, flow training, mind altering drugs, nootropics, special types of meditation, the electroencephalograph headsets like Muse, these types of things. It's growing exponentially, and there's this huge market demand for it. Because here's the reality: is like everybody's chronically overworked, they're chronically overstressed, and their lives aren't really where they need to be. It's why we have an opiate epidemic. It's why we have a very high suicide rate. It's why we have a high divorce rate, high domestic violence rate. So people are looking for an escape, and it can be video games or this, that, and the other. But now neuroscience has gotten to a point where you can start hacking your brain so that you actually get an escape. So there's like exponential growth in that whole business category of
that's
altered
crazy
state.
shit. I hope I never end up like that. I never.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's why I bought a farm.
get a
It's just
dog,
like
get a farm, get a
I got
dog.
7 dogs right
Go
now. It's
fishing.
crazy. I have all these people
That's
that come
awesome. What
stay
kind of
with me,
dogs you
and they
got?
bring.
Who
Well,
are
I got 4 big ones and 3 small ones. I
aren't
mean,
they
all these people.
lovely? Dogs are the
Yeah,
best.
and I
They're
got
lovely.
chickens too. I got farm chickens, so every day I get farm fresh eggs. So that always
Do
helps.
they get along with the dogs?
They do. The dogs protect the chickens. They keep the coyotes away. The worst are the skunks though, because they kind of burrow into the chicken coop and they eat the eggs. And if the dogs catch them, the skunks will spray the dogs. So I have to shoot the skunks whenever I see them.
I would love to shoot a skunk. No, you know, skunks are like cats that stink. They do weird shit. I used to have
Yeah.
skunks. I lived in Monterey, California, and we had skunks, and I used to have to look out my front door before I took the trash out at nighttime, or the trash cans were across from the front door, and I'd have to look down through the glass to make sure a skunk wasn't hanging out on the front porch. Because if you open the door, psst, they spray everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, no, they make sure there's no skunks there. Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
And
Hey,
nothing's worse than when your dog comes in late at night and you're like, what the hell is that smell? And you're like, oh God, they got skunked. That's the worst part when you have a
yep.
skunked dog.
And I don't care what that whole tomato juice thing is. I used dish soap on my dog
And
whenever
it
my
worked.
dog got skunked. Dish soap, yeah, just
It worked.
garden. Yeah. Do you use tomato
Wow.
juice?
No, no, I use vinegar and there's a few other things you mix together and you put it into a shampoo and you just kind of scrub them and it goes away. The
I
problem is the skunk actually got the dog in the mouth. So I could clean the fur, but the dog had skunk breath for about 4 weeks.
oh god.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
yeah.
Rude
That,
awakening.
and it's sticky. I had to get dish soap and a garden hose and ooh, and it was all gooey. And I was like, ooh, that came out of a skunk's ass.
Yeah, that's what skunk is, man. They're
Ugh.
fun. They're real fun. It's funny. I got a flame throwing drone. That's another one of the crazy inventions. And people always ask me like, why the hell do you have a flame throwing drone? And I always tell them, oh yeah, I hunt coyotes with it. They're like, oh God, no, you hunt coyotes with the flamethrower. It's like, no, I'm joking. It's obviously a joke. But no, everybody always takes it seriously, and it just become a ritual whenever I have a new person, especially some liberal from California that comes by the ranch. I'll have them going for 5 or 10 minutes and be like, yeah, 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 they just run off. Like, but what happens to coyotes? Well, after you burn a few of them, the rest of them learn.
You know, Charles, this is going to be the making of a video game. It is. You know,
Flamethrowing
oh,
drone coyotes.
yeah.
Uh, well, I got it
Crash
to hunt to
Bandicoot
burn.
4 is coming out this year.
hornet nests and things like that, because you can burn the wasp
Yeah.
nests in high places with it. Also, I use it to ignite the burn pile, because you have a ranch, you always get a lot of stuff you have to end up burning, and it's just so cool to have a remote controlled drone that has a flamethrower on it to burn things. These are the things you do to entertain
I would
yourself.
love
People ask
that.
like, how do you survive Twitter and Reddit and Telegram? It's like, you buy a flamethrowing drone, you fly it all around, you make fun of your California friends, it all works out.
You
So we
know,
got any audience
I want one
questions?
now. They would be flamethrowing drone in South Carolina would be great for the fire ants because everybody likes to burn the fire ants. You can't get rid of them. So yeah, let me check. See if people have questions. If you got questions, let us know over in the chat here. I'll read through them. And someone said Rick is frightened by that last comment. I don't know which one it was. Really, not much scares me. But yeah, this is live. Mashek asks, "Is this live?" Yes, it's live. So, Charles, I have some questions while people think of questions. What do you think of Cicada 3301? You've heard of them, and we were talking about that before we went live here. And what do you know about them? Did you ever solve the last puzzle? Are you a cicada
Um,
sleuth?
so there's all these groups. Some work for intelligence agencies, some are infosec companies, and some are just really clever people that like having fun with people over the internet. It's impossible to know up front, and they post these challenge problems. And even the U.S. government does this with the Central Intelligence Agency. So if you ever go to the to Langley, in the cafeteria area, they have this beautiful outdoor area, and they have this big sculpture called Cryptos, and it has a bunch of puzzles on it. And the last puzzle on Cryptos has not been solved yet. And so it's been sitting there, I think, for 20 years or 30 years, since like the early 90s or something like that. And like the best crypto analysts and signals intelligence people and cryptographers in the world who work for the agency, and also the NSA is looking at it because they'd love to break it just to mock the agency. They can't solve this cryptographic puzzle. So everybody does it. It's all around. And Cicada could be GCHQ, or it could just be like a Chaos Computer Club in Berlin. Who knows?
Could it be
But
MI6 or
yeah, it could be MIC. It could be anything, right?
FBI,
It
Alphabet
could
Soup?
be, yeah, something in the alphabet soup. But they're fun to play around with. I thought if I ever had to get a PhD again, it'd be really fun to do a combined interdisciplinary PhD, go down that road, and instead of doing mathematics, do computational logic with AI with infosec, and find that nice intersection there. And there's just a huge variety of rich and beautiful, elegant problems that can be worked on there. Like the other day, I was talking to the Singularity Net guys. I had a meeting with Ben, and we spent like 20 minutes talking about artificial general intelligence. It was just beautiful conversation, and he's a really, really bright fellow. And there's just so much cool stuff that's coming in the AI field that if it was combined with a really rigorous computational logic, and it was combined with other specific application problems, like, for example, intrusion detection, you can really create some cool systems. A lot of the pen testing that we're doing, and like the code quality stuff we're doing for Cardano, we're using Quick Check. It would be really cool to take that and put it on steroids and see how far you could take it, and then have a computer act as your red team and see if it has security problems or quality problems in the code, or things like that. So that's what I'm really interested in. Challenge problems. When I was younger, in my early 20s, I loved them, and I did them in mathematics. I have just like tons of math books from Math Olympiads and Putnam problems and things like that, and they were really fun to solve. And you always, there's super hard problems, but then there's this really clever application of something, where you solve a slightly analogous problem and then use pigeonhole principle or something like that, and then boom, you can easily solve it. So that was really fun. But as I've gotten older and fatter and slower, and the brain doesn't work as fast as it used to, like the appeal of doing challenge problems has gone down tremendously. And now I tend to think in systems, because even though I think a little slower than I used to, you can build these giant systems that, if you get them right, they self-evolve towards solving much larger, much more significant problems. And that's where I'm at
Charles,
in my career.
how do you fit all that shit in your head, man? You've been on Earth like 32 years. I'm about to turn 52. You're 31. You've like memorized everything on Earth. I swear, man. I'm not kidding. I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. So the original question was, did you solve the Cicada 3301 problem?
No, I
And
never
so
even
you
tried
did all
to.
but the last one. Good job. Well done.
I didn't
Oh,
even try any of those. I never
oh,
tried any infosec problems. I mean, that's a whole different ball game. It's a fun ball game though to think about. What's really nice is the security mindset of yeah, just like so many ways to get around things. Like I had a friend who worked in a clearance facility, and he had to use a key card to open doors, and he was going to the bathroom, and he left his cubicle, and he left the key card by accident in the cubicle, and then he walked outside, and he realized he needed a key card for the elevator to go down to the bathroom. So then he tried to go back to his cubicle, but the door was locked to get there. He's like, oh God, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to have to call security. It's going to be a big thing. And then he's thinking, wait a minute. He looks up, and like the ceiling tiles are those drop down ceilings where, they have like the stuff you can just push it open. And he
yeah.
realized that he could just like go through the ceiling and get into the office. And that's exactly what he ended up doing. It's
Like
just like,
Catherine Zeta-Jones on Entrapment, I bet.
yeah, it's like, this is just amazing, right? Where you can just overcome these amazingly sophisticated systems that have all this like advanced stuff with it just because the ceiling was poorly constructed. So that's InfoSec gives you a mindset to think holistically and say,
Yeah,
all right, well, what is you're only as strong as your weakest point in your structure, and sometimes the door is the strongest and the wall is the weakest, and so you have to reinforce both if you actually want to have real security.
yeah,
Analogously, when you think about cryptocurrency protocols, there's so many moving components that are connected to the security and reliability of the system. Like all the Bitcoin people talk about proof of work. Well, what about the network side? Aren't there tons of network attacks that can exist to actually
yeah.
damage your ability or de-anonymize things or eclipse attack people? And there's been no improvement, material improvement in those protocols in 10 years. So all these attacks are known, but no one does anything about it. So InfoSec is cool because it kind of forces you to think around the whole thing. And if you can
It
add
does.
other tools to it, then you can get really clever with it.
It does. It does. It doesn't make me think though, because when you were telling me the story about the guy got locked out of his office and he couldn't get back in because he didn't have his access card. He couldn't get in the elevator because he didn't have his access card.
Yeah.
Well, I was coming to the conclusion, well, obviously he can't even get to the bathroom. So what would I have done? I would have just taken a shit in the hallway.
But you
That's
can't get
exactly
back
what I
to
was
your
thinking.
office.
I was thinking,
You
okay,
can't even
where's
get back into
where's
your office, right? You just have to sit in the hallway with the shit in the hallway.
yeah, Charles. I was
That,
thinking, where's Charles going with this? Oh, he goes through the ceiling tiles. That's great. I would have just take a dump in the hallway in
yeah,
front
there
of the
we go.
security guard. Hey
Hallway dump.
guys, this is mine right here. This is my pile. I'll take care of it when I get my badge back, and then just drop the load, man. Drop
It's
the
what we
load.
call an organizational incentive for better security design. Hey, they used to do that with the Palace of Versailles. They built this incredibly beautiful palace, but they forgot to build bathrooms, so people would take a dump in the stairwells. Just think
I
about
don't.
that. Like this giant structure meant for thousands of people, and they don't put a bathroom in it. It's like who thinks this way?
I don't want to say nothing, but one of my favorite hotels in San Diego. The last time I was there, I was walking up the stairs and there was a turd in the stairwell, and I'm looking at it going, "Why?
Well, it's
Why?"
California, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like that's standard behavior. I mean, all of
and
Los
there's
Angeles and San Francisco is a toilet now.
yeah,
It's
and there's these no smoking signs all over the place, all over the place. So I went down. My favorite stogie shop is down across the street from the Hacienda Hotel. I go down and grab a stogie, maybe once or twice a week. Grab me a stogie, walk up the stairs. I'm smoking it on the property, and I got told, no, you can't smoke that here. And I'm like, all right. So I go off the property, finish my stogie, go back up to my room, and the smell of marijuana is pouring. You know how at some hotels you have a double door that closes from both sides?
right.
And you got to open both of them to open it. It's like if a family wants to rent both rooms.
Yeah.
And so the smell, I'm like, why does it smell like weed so much in here? It smells like marijuana all over the place. And I stuck my nose up by that door. It was coming through the cracks in the door. And I had to call the front desk and say, the guy next door is smoking marijuana in his room.
Ah, you're such a
And
narc, Rick.
I don't want to be
Such
the
a
party
narc.
pooper here, but it's no smoking. And I just got yelled at for having a stogie on the steps right down there. And I'm like, damn, son. They were tearing
Such
it
a
up
narc.
though. They were tearing it up.
I'm gonna call you McCracken
I was a
now.
narc. I was a narc. Yep. I was
All
just
right, we got any audience questions? I'm sure we got a few floating
we
around.
we just went off on a total tangent there. We got some messages retracted. If a pool becomes saturated, if it falls in a ranking structure in a daily scenario, well, that's a hard question. We can't answer that. What do you think the digital dollar will be released to Americans? It already has. The digital dollar has been out for years now in the form of credit cards. They don't even print money anymore. It's too expensive to print money. They don't
Yeah.
print it. Some guy just types a number in a computer and magically, you can't even print it. They ran out of money to buy ink, so they just typed it in a computer now. Is it ever going to, would that digital dollar ever run on Cardano? Probably.
Well, yeah, actually, it's really interesting. Central bank issued digital currencies are an area that we're looking at, and we've been negotiating with one company in particular that has a big lead in that space. And we may be able to bring them into the Cardano ecosystem. That's actually one of the first deals that the C Fund is looking into. So I can't really say anything about it. But what's really attractive about central bank digital currencies is that once you can get them to a point where they understand cryptocurrencies, you can do the same thing I was talking about with Litecoin, with wrapped Litecoin, to do a wrapped version of that, bring it into your ledger. So it gives you a completely new type of stablecoin in the system, a stablecoin directly issued by the central bank itself and redeemable by the central bank's promises. So it'll augment the algo coins and the reserve coins like Tether that exist. And it's probably good to have a Trinity strategy where you do a little bit of each of them and see which one the market prefers.
Yep. And what's interesting is whenever you were we're distributing money through Ouroboros, or distributing money through a blockchain, for example, using multi-party computations, and you say, okay, these addresses, based on the amount of stake they hold, magically here's some more money that comes into existence, and it's mining, or minting, it's minting.
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out for a couple of weeks, how do we send $3 trillion out to 150 million Americans? And I thought, wow,
They
I think
spent
our
like two
government.
days trying to decide if they put Trump's name on the checks or not. He's like, come on, guys. And now they're having a debate about e-voting. And they're going to the thing of like, should we let people vote online, or should we have paper ballots, or should we vote in person? Like, guys, catch up with the times. I got everything for you. Come to my van. It's got free candy on the side of it. We park it in front of schools. You're going to love it.
This is like you're trying to explain the Starship Enterprise to the Wright
Right.
brothers inventing the airplane, and you're
Right.
saying
Right. Right.
it's way too far ahead. It would blow their minds. It'd be like, you can actually vote online. How does that work? That's like the guy heard saying Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. Hell no. Cash is a Ponzi scheme. It's not cash as a Ponzi scheme. You can use cash to make a Ponzi scheme. You can use credit to make a Ponzi scheme. You can use Bitcoin, but Bitcoin isn't a Ponzi scheme. Just like cash doesn't commit crimes,
Right.
right? That's an outcome or a resource. It's not the actual crime. So it's kind of hilarious how that all goes down. Yeah. There's a question from Hussein Akbar, who asks, will Cardano join Cosmos? Thank you, Hussein. Will Cardano join Cosmos? That's an interesting question. I mean, I wouldn't put that on Charles to answer, but Charles, feel free to do so if you wish. But I think it would be kind of like, would Cosmos join Cardano? Would they want to build on the platform? Or are we going to meet in the
Well,
middle?
well, here's the thing. The way that we built Cardano, we built it as a permission system first, and then it's become a permissionless system. So currently, the consensus nodes are fixed with Ouroboros BFT. That's the Byron mode, and the relays are fixed in that respect. So that's basically Fabric. So we're transitioning to Shelley, which is an open decentralized system, but the ability to switch between a permission chain and a permissionless chain is literally switching a parameter in the system. And the stake pool operators learned that when they saw the deployments of the system. And some of them have actually deployed private clusters of OBFT nodes. So we joined Hyperledger, and we'll basically start thinking around an enterprise strategy of how do we reuse all the Cardano stack for a permission ledger environment. And then the question of, can you federate and connect chains together and have the chains work like Cosmos does? Well, that's what we were talking about with the ITN. And there's many different models. You can have a feudal model, you can have a partnership model, and so forth. So that's something we'll talk about in 2021. And I think there's a lot that can be accomplished there. Now, as for working with Cosmos or Polkadot or any of these other things, I'm sure the foundation will build lots of alliances with people. And IO Global is just one company. From our side, I know Jay Kwan, and he's a good guy, and I've never had any problems with Tendermint or the Cosmos project. I think that they do interesting work. Similarly, I know Gavin Wood obviously very well, and he does interesting work too. And so it'd be probably pretty cool to do something fun with Polkadot. But if they want to compete, we're happy to compete. We're much larger, and we have a much better chance of winning if that's the case. But if they want to cooperate, I think actually we can create mutual value for each other. So we'll come back to that when we're a little further along the Goguen train, and we start talking about cross-chain communication and wrapped assets and system and side chains and these types of things. And I think there's definitely something there that would make a lot of sense for both of us. So, we also had the same conversation with the Aeon guys. I actually know them pretty well, and I've been to their office in Toronto, and we've gone back and forth about different options and things we can do. And we said, hey, when we're at a little bit more evolved, let's come back to it. So I'm sure there's something we can work out there.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a great answer. Thanks for that question, Hussein. Thanks for the response there, Charles. And as you guys can see, deep down inside, Charles is actually a really nice guy. On the surface, he's sufficiently abrasive. Is that a fair statement? Sufficiently
Sure.
abrasive.
But isn't that a good thing? That's a feature, not a bug, because it prevents a
It's a
cult of
feature.
personality from forming around me. If everybody
Yeah.
hates me, no one wants to follow me, right? So
Yeah.
it means the ecosystem becomes decentralized. If you have the beautified, beneficent, saintly leader, no one ever wants that person to leave. And then, everybody after that person dies tries to like emulate and speak for them. But it's nice to have an abrasive guy that people accept, but don't necessarily want to devote their whole life to and get tattoos of his face on their body, because then that means that you have some hope to decentralize the ecosystem at some point.
Yeah. You know what I think's funny is when I see people, I see this in Telegram. I'm a moderator over there on some of the channels, and people say, Charles, please don't tweet that. That makes us look bad. And sometimes I just say to myself, I'm like, fuck that. Tweet whatever the hell you want. Who gives a shit?
I need to change the whole Twitter game. I'm not so good
Fire
at
them,
it.
fire 'em off, man.
I lose so much
Sometimes,
credibility from Twitter.
yeah. Sometimes I
Um,
just go, ooh, that was rough. But you got to take the fleas with the dog. That's all there's to it.
yeah, my media director, he's just like always pale faced every time I tweet. He's like, what is Charles going to do today?
God, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what your executives, what goes through their head, and they say, he said what?
Uh,
God,
Charles will be Charles.
how do we do damage control on that?
Yeah, there's been a few tweets where they were just like, whoa, Charles, maybe you should take a little bit of a break. And I was like, okay, in hindsight, I'd like to get a do-over. But I mean, I'm not as bad as Elon Musk with his like SEC suck Elon's cock. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa. He's like, they fine you for these things. They're trying to actively remove you from
Yeah.
your company for these
Yeah.
things.
He tweets out, my stock's way overpriced.
I know. It's like, how do you get away with that? And
Yeah.
publicly
And
traded
then it
company?
goes up.
Of course it goes up.
And
The
then it
market's
goes,
like, we'll show you, Elon.
yeah.
We'll
Did you,
show you
did
by
you see
giving
his,
you more money.
did you see his Doge tweet? He's
I
like,
know.
what the?
I know. What they should have done is just hacked Elon Musk's Twitter account. Nobody would have known about the hack for like 2 days
Yeah.
instead of, yeah.
That's what we were saying
Twitter.
2 months ago. Oh, did Elon's Twitter account get hacked? And the next day he's on Twitter. He's like, no, it wasn't hacked. I said that.
No, I was just really high.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a couple of whiskeys and,
Right.
me and Joe
Don't drink and
Rogan
tweet.
had a fatty together.
It'd be
Um,
great, some future version of Twitter that gives you a drunk tweet warning. It's like you type something crazy, and then Twitter will be like, "Are you sure you want to tweet this? You appear to
yeah.
be inebriated."
Yeah. Are you drunk? Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Tone Vases would go off more often than not.
Tone, I know Tone really well. We've run at each other everywhere, in Dubai and Mexico and these other. His whole thing is like everything that but Bitcoin is a scam, and let's get into fights with people. Fights get lots of clicks and ratings, and then of course he makes money from that. So he doesn't actually believe the things he says. He doesn't take these things seriously. He just has his book. He talks his book, and it's like a fight. Like when Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather were going at it, and Conor's got the hard on, and he's like trying to molest Mayweather.
He,
It's like he's doing this because it'll increase his pay-per-view ratings, right? And so
yeah.
it's the same situation with Tone Vays. And he's a clown, and he's paid to be a clown. It's the same for Chico Crypto. If he thinks he can make more money being Cardano's friend than hating on Cardano, then he would. Well, at this point, that ship has sailed. But he made that decision obviously to be very anti-Cardano. And he realizes that obviously he went too far with it, and actually said things that we could sue him for slander for. But I mean, what's the point? Find a molten tar monster, you get molten tar on your body, and it burns you horribly, even if you win. It's like
Yeah.
suing Craig Wright. It's like everybody that knows that dude is not Satoshi, but if they say it, they get involved with it, then they get sued, and then there's this whole thing, and these SV trolls show up, and you can't get that that you can't win with that. So
Yeah.
the best policy is just to ignore them unless they do something very significant or it gets a lot of traction and you have to make some sort of statement. Like that proof of work versus proof of stake thing. It was a great video, I think, for the community. When people actually legitimately ask, they can repost that video time and again and again and again, which is why I did it as a whiteboard video
Hmm.
instead of just a comment. And I'll do whiteboard videos like that from time to time to provide content for the community to defend itself when we get attacked from external actors. And okay, tone was the impulse for that, but it really wasn't the point. It wasn't for him, because what's his rebuttal? He already did it today. He called us a scam again, and then he just lied again about the project, and there you go. What's the point? You can't really win that argument with him.
Hmm.
He's just kind of shit on the table and knocking over pieces.
Yeah. You know, Ruslan Duden, he works over there at Emergo, and him and I, we used to chat on Telegram a lot. And he'd say, "You can't fight a shit, old Russian saying, old Russian saying. You can't fight a shit monster without getting shit all over you. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's just not
exactly.
worth it. You can pick and choose your
Exactly.
battles." We do got a lot of questions go in chat now. Thank you all for being patient and asking the questions there. Chimp 2153 asks if you've heard from John O'Connor in Ethiopia yet.
Yes, we did. We did. He got access to a government computer at one of the ministries, and he let us know that everything's okay. It's a bad situation there, and we hope that everything gets cleaned up. I think a singer or something like that got killed, and it created a lot of protests. And then the government made a decision to kind of shut down the whole internet. So that's really an interesting thing, and it shows you that there's some infrastructure problems if one entity can do that, and they're just trying to get everything restored there. So we hope everything gets resolved. But John's okay, and everything there is okay. It just slowed down a little bit. We were waiting, for example, to hear if we'd won a program that we bid out at the ATA, but they said, hey, for obvious reasons, we're not going to announce any winner for a few more weeks while this settles down. We said, yeah, we kind of get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But John, thank you for asking. We were really worried because we could not contact him. We tried his girlfriend, we tried him, we tried everybody we could think in his network, and just like everything was down. And then eventually he talked his way into getting access to some government computers, and then he used it to message us. And now he's back online and he's able to communicate.
Okay. Well, I'm glad he's doing okay, and that you guys have heard from him. And thanks for asking that good question. Oh,
That's another
Charles,
reason why I kick
I
people in the teeth, by the way. Because he's like, this is not just academic. There are people in countries where these things happen, and they're risking their lives to do this stuff.
yeah.
It's not a game for John. He's been arrested before at the border. He's had all kinds of horrible things happen in the pursuit of the mission of the company, which is to give economic identity to billions of people. And then people just come around and just pretend like it's fun. It's like you're telling the guy who is taking these risks that he's not actually there, and he's not actually doing that. And this is why I get so irritated when people criticize this.
Yeah, and you stand up for your folks, and that's important. I'm glad you did hear back from John. Hey, I got a question. There's a question here for me, and someone asked, the wonder asks, when is Rick going to ask the good question? Never. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so I got a good question, Charles. All right, so who do you think is Satoshi Nakamoto? Is it Hal Finney or is it Adam Back?
Oh, it's Adam Back.
It's
I mean,
Adam Back. I thought so.
Satoshi, the alias is dead and gone, but there's no doubt in my mind that that it was Adam.
Yeah,
He
Satoshi
fits the
Nakamoto was
book.
Adam Back. Yeah. Why do you think that? I think it was. I think it's Adam Back. I used to think it was Hal Finney, and I love
Well,
Hal
no,
Finney.
Adam and Hal knew each other very well. They
Yeah.
kind of grew up. People forget that Hal worked with John Callis and Phil Zimmerman to write the PGP specification and do the first implementation of it. It's like he's been around forever. Adam meets everybody. He had the sufficient academic background. He's a sufficiently good engineer. He invented proof of work. He'd been in the cypherpunk community since the 1980s. Like he kind of knew how to do all the things you'd need to do to build Bitcoin. He disappeared for a while when Satoshi was relevant. When Satoshi left, Adam reappeared magically. And then Adam goes on to start Blockstream, which is the company that's trying to make Bitcoin better. So, and the way he communicates is damn near identical. He uses the same double spacing, and it's like everything matches there. If you're really curious, the easiest way of identifying it would be to use what's called code stolometry. So basically, when you write source code, it's like a fingerprint, and you can
Hmm.
use computers to decide what that fingerprint looks like, and then you can compare other pieces of source code and match them. The NSA does this for hackers. So when people write malware, they can identify Russian malware over Chinese malware using stylometric techniques. And similarly, you could take code that Adam has written in the past and compare it to Satoshi code. And there's probably, I haven't done it personally, but I guarantee you that somebody has. There's going to be a match there. Adam is very close to Satoshi. But the point of an alias is that once you've burned the alias, it's gone. And I suspect what he did is destroy all the keys. So even if he claimed to be Satoshi tomorrow, I don't think even Adam could prove that he is. So in other words, Satoshi's dead. So I keep saying that Satoshi's dead. He's gone and buried. It's like, yeah, the
Yeah.
alias is burned and it's
Yeah.
not coming back.
Yeah. I hope that was a good question. Did I answer your question, the Wanderer?
Another thing, just real quickly, the computer science education. So there are certain quirks in the design of Bitcoin which would only match somebody like Adam or somebody who came from those computer science circles he came from, particularly the scripting language of Bitcoin. Fourth, it was in textbooks in the 80s and 90s in the UK and those types of circles as a reference language when they were talking about stack-based assembly and these things. So if you chose, there was no reason to choose a language like Forth for the scripting language for Bitcoin, yet he did. But if you came from those academic circles, it would have been an obvious choice for his age. So he meets the age profile as well. So there's an education profile, there is an age profile, there's a network profile, there's a lifestyle profile, and there's a personality profile, and so forth. And so when you go through each of these things, it matches very well for Adam.
Hmm. Yeah, and I've seen there's some other folks who are looking at information as well, and coincidentally came across the concept. There was probably Adam back, based on some information that they just happened to randomly stumble across. Do you think? I really wonder if there's any relationship between with Adam back and Cardano not showing up on Wikipedia. I mean, it's like,
Well, I've known Adam for a long time. I mean, actually, I asked him to be the chief scientist of Ethereum, and we interviewed him for that. So, Adam and I know each other, and we've met in many places. We talk to each other from time to time here and there. They're not very long conversations and not very meaningful conversations. It's like, hey, we see each other. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody from Blockstream doesn't like Cardano because, they think proof of work is bad or something, but I don't think Adam is coordinating anything or he's particularly malicious in these things. I think he has probably much better things to do as a CEO of a company than worry about Cardano.
it's chopping up a little.
You there, Rick? Rick, you there? Rick, Rick, Rick. Hey, Rick, I lost you there. You there?
Are we back?
I
Are
think
we
so.
back? I think.
Was it on my end or your end, Rick?
Okay, here's what I think, Charles. I think we pissed somebody off, and they hacked this. They hacked this motherfucker. That's what happened. Someone hacked my shit. Digital Fortress is under attack. I can't believe we're back.
So where was I? Where did I cut out?
Okay, so it went really choppy there for like 2 minutes, and I'm looking at the stream, and I can see you, but not me, and you're looking at your phone. But now I can see us. Well, hold on. Where we at? Are we both back yet?
Yeah, I was checking. I was checking for messages to
Ah,
see if you were pinging me.
There we are, both back. You see what happens when you talk shit about who Satoshi Nakamoto is?
Yeah, the whole internet's go down, man. The internet's you
The
gotta
internet comes down.
yeah.
They came after us, bro. They came after us. Look at that. Live. We just got live attack hack on the air. No, I'm just kidding. It's a bunch of bullshit. Let's see here. Any good
I thought Zoom improved its security. That's what I read.
Well, there's been some serious problems. I read from Heshoshi that DNS is being attacked in general.
Yeah. Cloudflare got hit yesterday. I was going to do some work
Ooh.
yesterday, and some stuff went down, and I had to wait. We had to reschedule till Tuesday. It's crazy because Cloudflare is like Cloudflare. I mean, they never go down. They're the thing.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of craziness recently, but the internet's very brittle. We talked to Vince Cerf about that when we did the Cardano Summit, and there's a lot of design defects in the internet that cause these brittle points that people have to put a huge amount of engineering effort in to fix. If we had stuff like Rena, it would just all work and run, and we wouldn't have any of these problems. But oh well, what can you do?
Yeah, you try to make it work. I remember reading about Rena. I tried to look further into that, and I thought, yeah, there's a better way to make a better internet. But the problem is the paradigm shift. You already have an existing internet that does work, and you might have something that's 100 times better, but nobody wants it because they already have one that works.
And they also spent $1 trillion on the other internet. It's
Yes.
like nobody really wants to spend that kind of money to upgrade anything. It's like a house where you spent a huge amount of money fixing everything, upgrading it. Then you have a neighbor who moves next door and they play loud music all the time. And you're like, do I move? Well, I've already spent all this money and time and effort making it better. Maybe I'll put some soundproofing or something, or who knows. And then you put the soundproofing in, and then, they have like drug addicts come because they sell pot or something. And then so you have like these weirdos walking around. So, I guess I'll put up a wall and put some cameras. Maybe that'll solve the problem. And then like you're 5 years into this bad neighbor, and you just got so used to mitigation that you never even asked, maybe I should just move to another house. That's the internet 101. They live like next to the world's worst neighbor, and they've just been spending 40 years trying to make the situation slightly better.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean firsthand.
Right.
I moved here in the wintertime, and in the wintertime it's quiet and calm and snowy and it's pretty, and it's still nice in the summertime. But in the summertime, the temperature goes up, the windows come down, the music volume goes up, and I've had to go over and tell people in near vicinity and say, hey, can you turn your music down, please? I can hear it, 50 yards away.
Right.
And my sons tell me, they say, Dad, somebody's going to shoot you. And I was like, I'm still going to go tell them to turn the music down.
Right.
One time I go over there, I said, hey, man, can you turn your music down? And the guy looks at me, goes, you a cop? I said, no. He goes, you want to fight? And I said, no, I want you to turn your music down. Oh, okay.
That's why,
and then
I bought a farm.
That's why you bought a farm.
They're going to be so far away from everybody and not really care, right?
Yeah, I'm going to move to, when ADA hits $2.32, I'm going to move to Northern Virginia out in the Shenandoah Valley, and not financial advice, and up near Dwayne Johnson. I'm going to buy a farm up there, even though it's a nice neighborhood here, I have to admit. It's a nice place. There's great neighbors. My neighbor just turned 100 today, my neighbor Ginny, shout out to Ginny, 100 years old. And she doesn't watch this channel, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But, life in prison means nothing to her. So, you don't want to piss that woman off. She can just take us all down.
Should we open up a can of whoop ass? There'll be a can of whoop ass. Happy birthday, Jenny. So, all right, let me check that for any more questions. We've been on for a while. I'm okay. It was great, Charles. It's been great. Let me see if there's any more questions, and we'll wrap it up. Sound good?
Sure.
All right.
Okay. Let me close it.
Yeah, and some people just saw we were cut out and then came back in. Someone said, why is there two streams? That was from Tacos and Ada. I love that name, Tacos and Ada. I don't know why there's two streams. I did the exact same.
Well, there's two chains, and now there's two streams, right? You've become a white rapper.
Oh, my God. I can rap.
Sorry, Rick.
I can rap. I don't want to. No, I can do it. I was chilling with my homeboy just the other day. He said, let me pop your sister. And I said, okay, but my sister is nasty. My sister ain't nice. And if you want to pop my sister, well, you have to pay a price. So anyway, I don't want to get into all that because no one's paying me to rap. So anyway, when is Yoroi going to list Ergo? That's one of the questions. When $2 ADA, Rick? Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to say financial
Yeah,
advice.
for Ergo, Yoroi, that's a Emergo question, and we don't control that roadmap. They do work really hard over there. I wish that Emergo would put more development resources into Yoroi because it's such a great product, and that team is so good. And I think if they had like 5 or 6 more developers, they'd just own half the fucking world by now. I'm just consistently impressed with what Sebastian and Nico do, and there's a lot of stuff that they have to do behind the scenes to make it all work out. But I suspect that they'll have Ergo support pretty soon.
Yeah, and also I'm wondering, with Daedalus, it's going to have a multi-asset wallet as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been known for a long time. You have that extended UTXO model run with Daedalus, so it can handle UTXO, can handle the accounting model. So you were looking at a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to start with the native assets, but it would be really great to get it to be also a Bitcoin wallet and other major currencies. So it'd be like a one-stop shop, and it also help with adoption for ADA because if we put a DEX right into Daedalus, then people could use their other cryptocurrencies to buy ADA, and so it'd be a real cool place. Or if they do wrapped transactions, like
Yeah.
make him a Litecoin wallet, they could do wrapped Litecoin and move their Litecoin into the Cardano network and start doing stuff with it. So Daedalus would be a great one-stop shop for that.
Mm. Yeah, it will be. I did a video on that on my Digital Fortress channel, like speculative, saying this is what the technology would be capable of, and sky's the limit. Let's see. Any other questions? I think we got all the questions. I hope you guys liked my little rap there. That was just my brother taught me that song. I think it was Beastie Boys.
You never cease to amaze me, Rick.
Yeah, yeah. I've been around a little while. Oh my gosh. All right. So thanks everyone for your questions. I appreciate it. Let's see. Is there any other? Let's see. Anything else? I apologize if I missed them. Uh, that we can get to everything, but I think it was a great chat, Charles. It was great talking with you. We had some very interesting points come up about who Satoshi could be. So if you haven't seen that, check that out earlier in the video. And I appreciate you coming on here as well. It was
A lot
really
of
great
fun.
having you here.
A lot of fun. Yeah, we got to shoot the shit every now and then.
We
Rick, you've been in here forever, and it's nice to actually have OGs that you can talk to in your space.
Yeah, it is OGs. We are the OGs now. You're one of the original
We're the old
creators.
guys.
Yeah,
I remember when I was like one of the first guys in Bitcoin. It's like there was Mike Kern and Roger and Eric, and I joined and I looked at all of them and I'm like, wow, Bitcoin's so cool. And now I've been in so long that I've become like an OG in the space. And
yeah.
so how the hell did that happen? So and now we're getting long enough in Cardano where like the first wave of people are now OGs. They're like, I've been around since 2017. It's like, whoa, that's actually OG now.
It is. It is
Yeah.
OG. And I really like Roger Ver. I've seen some of the videos and some of his discussions that he had, and he's a very likable guy.
Yeah.
Even when he's pissing somebody off, it's funny, it's
You know,
entertaining, and he's right. And I go, damn, he's a good. That's a
Roger's
good
another example of a
presentation.
guy that'll kick people in the teeth for his community, his ecosystem, and he's very shameless about it. I like Roger a lot. I think that Roger, he doesn't need to do what he's doing because he's crazy rich. He owns a Lamborghini and is a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and just life is great for him too. But he really does care, and he does put his money where his mouth is. And when Bitcoin Cash came out, he got so much flack. But remember, he didn't just start with Bitcoin Cash. He started with Bitcoin, and he never left. He never left his version of Bitcoin. And we used to call him Bitcoin Jesus because this was the guy go to barbershop, they'd cut his hair, and he said, "Oh, I'm not going to pay you. I'm going to pay you in Bitcoin." And he wouldn't leave until they'd accept Bitcoin. And he'd go to coffee shop, order coffee, do the same thing. And he got hundreds of businesses and service providers to accept Bitcoin throughout the years. And he was really there during that nascent early stage to let it get to the next level. And then because he has a difference of opinion on the technological roadmap, suddenly he's Bitcoin Judas and an evil human being and like just trying to make money and scam people. I thought that was one of the greatest tragedies in the history of the Bitcoin space. We also lost Mike Hearn over that. Mike was emailing Satoshi back in 2009. We lost Gavin Andresen over it. We lost a lot of good people over that debate who had been around, done things, and they weren't just kicked out. Their character was viciously assaulted and they were called stupid. Here's the reason why this all happened because the Bitcoin core developers didn't want to be honest with people. If you increase the block size, Bitcoin kills itself over time. The reason being is the chain gets too large for any one actor to host that chain. So you only have a small group of data centers that can possess it. So if you have a large block size, eventually you'll have a ledger that's in the terabytes and then eventually in the petabytes and so forth. Well, if that occurs, well, then, it's not a replicated decentralized system. It's a highly federated system that's server client. So keep the block size very small. So you have a scarce resource and the ledger doesn't grow very much. And then you can always be somewhat personal computer. But then it means you have to push all this stuff off chain through some other solution. So they didn't really want to have that argument about a property called inclusive accountability. And so they instead just restricted it down to this SegWit versus block size thing. And they really should have been asking, what is the roadmap for inclusive accountability without having to have the whole blockchain? Because if that's the point, then who cares if the blocks are 20 megabytes or 30 megabytes or something like that? You can do mathematical modeling. Roger Wattenhofer and Eric Decker did this with a paper in 2013 that shows you can relay 4 megabyte blocks if you want to. And that was off of bandwidth assumptions from 2013. And the networks have only gotten better since then. So it was never a block size debate. It was an inclusive accountability debate. And because they didn't want to be intellectually honest about it, it created a lot of ill will and it kicked some great people out of the ecosystem. So what did Roger do? Every day he wakes up super disciplined, eats his Wheaties, goes out there, sells Bitcoin Cash, opens his wallet, spends money, invests in Bitcoin Cash, created Cash Script, did all these great things. And he'll keep doing that till the end of time. And it's a shame that he's no longer on Team Bitcoin. I'd love to have had him on Team Cardano. That'd make my life a lot easier. Talk about growth and adoption and use and utility. A guy like that is just one of a kind. And they can bring in millions of people into your ecosystem if you just empower them the right way and get out of their way and let them do their job. And the Bitcoin space loved him until they turned on him. So it really made me question, is it a good idea to be in that type of an ecosystem when you can do so much for it? And because you have a difference of opinion, you can be exiled and excommunicated. We just don't do that here in Cardano ecosystem. Okay, Mark and I have our differences. The guy threatened to sue me. I have a policy. If someone threatens to sue me, I never talk to them again, ever. But you know what? If he submits ballots to the DC fund, they're equal to everybody else. And if he can get people to do stuff with that, all the power to him. It's a decentralized ecosystem. There's no group of people with an enemies list who sit there and say, this person's a bad actor. It's up to him to persuade people to do things that make sense. And if he can, there you go. And I'll be glad because it's a diverse ecosystem. Similarly with like Nostradamus, that guy, he's at times he's off his rocker. But you know what I told him years ago? I said, hey, if you're willing to come out to Hong Kong, you can come sit down with me, ask me anything you want, and you can record the thing live if you want to. And you say your thing, I'll say my thing. And he did. He flew out there and he interviewed me, and we had a good interview there. And he was free to ask me anything he wanted. And he's some days with us, some days criticizing us, and so forth. Again, there was a time where he threatened to sue me because he got banned from something or didn't like something. And again, whenever anybody does that, I never talk to them again. That's the price you pay if you threaten litigation. I was like, okay, well, I can't trust any communication we have here because maybe you're going to use it in a lawsuit or something. So you've just decided that the only way you're ever going to communicate with me is through my official channels and lawyers. Oh, great. That's the threshold. So please don't do that. That said, if he submits a ballot into the DC fund or contributes something Cardano, then, if the community's behind him and they fund him, I wouldn't care. You see, and I think that's what makes great ecosystems and resilience, the ability to disagree without being disagreeable and to have completely polar opposite people be in the same tent and do things for the common good of that ecosystem, despite the fact that they don't get along. Bitcoin has decided that there's only one way of ever looking at anything. And if you deviate at all from that thing, you're a monster and should be in jail, even if you have helped build Bitcoin and get it to that level. Frankly, Bitcoin would not exist in its current form and success without Roger Ver. And then they just kick the guy out and say he's a horrible guy because he has a difference of opinion.
That Who kicked him out? The oligarchs of Bitcoin?
Yeah, well,
that?
I know that was the other thing. It's like, why does anybody get to say this guy's not an OG? He owns Bitcoin.com, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, but he created Bitcoin Cash. It's like, yeah, Eric Voorhees runs Shapeshift. It trades hundreds of cryptocurrencies. What the fuck is the problem?
Yeah.
Come on, guys. And why does Ethereum exist? It exists because Bitcoin doesn't want to innovate. I mean, it's like, where did everybody from Ethereum come from? There was recently a book that just came out, The Infinite Machine. Talks about the history of Ethereum. It's an interesting book. If you ever want to read about it. And all the core developers of Ethereum were Mastercoin, Color Coins, former Bitcoin core guys. And why? Because they couldn't innovate with Bitcoin. It took too long, too much money. There was just not enough juice in that platform. The evolutionary curve was very slow. And they were told, just wait for side chains and it'll all be great. And we'll have it in 6 months. Of course, that was 2013. Did it happen? No. And
Mhm.
so they created Ethereum, and it created a smart contract revolution, and it proved that there was a huge market for a multi-asset ledger. So the response should be on the Bitcoin side, oh, we got it wrong. This is definitely something that people want. Let's bring it into Bitcoin. Instead, it's Ethereum is a scam. All these people are criminals, pre-mine, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
It's like, how tone deaf can you be?
Yeah.
You know,
The
it would be
technology
like,
is far more advanced than Bitcoin.
I mean,
What's going
it's
on
just like
here?
Microsoft watching the iPhone just go to the fucking moon,
Yeah.
and Steve Ballmer is sitting there saying, "Oh, that's not a threat. The iPhone is just a trivial thing. What they're doing is nothing." I mean, literally, this is what they did at Microsoft for 2 years, and by the time they woke up, it was too late. Android was out, network effect was behind. But had they recognized in 2007 that the iPhone was really a big deal, they could have bought Nokia then and just
Hmm.
crushed Apple on the market within 3 to 5 years, like they did Netscape. But instead, they just responded poorly. And Bitcoin is literally doing the same thing with the smart contract guys and all these other guys.
It
And they
is.
say, oh, but we have all these other companies that will add it in, and Lightning will add it in, and Rootstock will add it in. It's like, great. It's been 7 years. Where is it? Why is it not there? You we've gone through a lot of hard forks throughout the
Yeah.
years here, guys. Come on,
You're,
figure it out.
we probably have Bitcoin smart contracts running on Cardano before Bitcoin has
Yeah, wrap
smart
Bitcoin.
contracts running on Bitcoin.
Wrap
Yeah.
Bitcoin. You just
I
send
saw your
Bitcoin into
video.
Cardano.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw your video the other day. It was great. The one with the wrap Bitcoin actually had a lot of killer ones come out lately. So yeah, I don't know how or why they would have kicked Roger Ver out. A lot of people seem to like him. You got. Maybe Mark Stofka's like our Roger Ver. I don't expect you
I don't
guys
know.
to ever. I think the only thing you guys will ever agree on is that you don't like each other. I still
Well,
talk.
I don't even not like the guy, to be honest
Yeah,
with
he's
you.
he's
And it's
he's
like,
kind of likable guy. He really
I
is.
mean, it's like, again, I don't think I've met him in person, or if I have, it was briefly, and I just don't care. I mean, it takes all kinds, and you don't have to like me. We don't have to get along for this to be a great ecosystem. It's just I have a policy. If someone threatens litigation in any form, I just immediately shut out, because again,
Okay.
I don't know if any communication I send will be used in that.
Okay.
So it's a self-defense mechanism. And so if you want to cross that road, you think it's a fun game, or you're tempting, it's like the price you pay is you
Yeah.
lose all
You,
access to me,
you know.
and
You know what's.
we treat you very coldly, and we'll only communicate through lawyers at that point.
Yeah. Charles. Here's what makes me block people. This is what makes me block people. If they weigh heavy on the shoulders, and it's hard for me to describe. I'm very tolerant of other people. I'm very welcoming to other people. But if
Mm-hmm.
they start to weigh me down, if I start to feel like this is not a productive relationship, this is starting to get heavy. Even if it's on social media, people say, "Oh, just ignore it, just scroll on by it." No, I'm gonna block it, so I don't even have to look at it. I don't even have to use my filter to filter it out. So people need to understand that is if you want to have a productive relationship with other people, don't weigh heavy on them. And some people on
Right.
Twitter think they can get away with it, and I just don't like it. If you're heavy, if you carry too much burden, and there's no give and take here, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to block it and just say
I think that's the
it's not
problem with
worth it.
social media, Rick, is
It's
that
not
there's
worth it.
just no cost to criticism anymore for people.
Hmm.
People, they say things over social media that you would just never say in public. If you walk up to someone, like even Max Kaiser, when he compared me to a pedophile, I'm like, Max, I get that you're trying to have a show here and we have a strong difference of opinion. You could have compared me to Jamie Dimon. You called the
Hmm.
guy a parasite and a tapeworm. So go compare me to that, because I took a bailout too, right? So at least I'm in the same category, in your structure, and your fan base would have loved it and rah rah. But when you see Epstein, it's like, wait a minute, I took 300 some thousand that other people have taken $6 trillion of, from everybody from like the Lakers to like small colleges, and so we're all pedophiles now. We all have the morals of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to create a sex island and go rape children because I took some government money to keep full employment.
Yeah.
I was like,
That's
what reality do you live in where that's okay to say this type of stuff to a person you know and you've interacted with and had dinner with and a relationship with, and at any time you pick up the phone and call that person? What reality do you live in where that's a good deal? But he says, oh well, I'll get a lot of clicks, I'll get a lot of tweets, it'll be the news item of the last 15 minutes, and then we'll move on to something else. It's like, no, that's digital, but that goes into the real world now. So from now on, it's like our relationship's totally different. You
mm-hmm.
called me a pedophile. If you said that to a person in person, do you think that they're going to, next time they see you, be like, hey, dude, what's going on? How's life? No, you're on their shit list for the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's the general idea.
Yeah.
If the interactions weigh heavy on the shoulders, it's like, God, dude, I can't keep, nobody wants
Yeah.
to deal with that. You
Yeah.
don't have to have a foot massage every time you interact with somebody. Criticism is a good thing, but if they just weigh heavy, you're just being an asshole. Okay, I'm
Right.
done.
Right. I mean, and then what do you gain from it? It's like you end up old, alone. No one likes you. No one's there to support you, and you die alone. You're bitter. It's like There Will Be Blood. When Daniel Plainview died, his last supporter was his son, and he called him a bastard in a basket. And the son just left, and then he's just completely an alcoholic, shooting shit in his mansion. He's got money, but like there's nothing there. And I mean, this is what happens to these people, whether they have money or not. I mean, they end up dead and alone. Everybody abandons them because what loyalty have they shown to anyone else?
Mm-hmm.
People have known them for almost a decade. They just throw away and casually, why not? Fine, there you go. So I just can't imagine living that way, and I can't imagine treating people that way. And I think the problem with social media is it creates a bizarre, perverse incentive for people to do that. And they think they have to do that in order to interact.
There's
And
no
then we wonder
accountability.
why we have a president like Trump. We wonder why politics have become the way that they've become. It's a reflection of society as it is and social media as it is. And everything is just the next tweet. Everything is the next video. And all these people tweeting, they tend to forget there's human beings on the other side of that. And at some point, those human beings just decide to throw in the towel and say, okay, you go live your life. And then they leave the medium and they don't have to come back to the medium. And then those people are left behind. What do they have? They've just driven away all these people.
All the good people left. You're
Yeah.
left with the shitbirds.
You're left with the shitbirds.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. You're just
Yeah.
all covered in it.
I like to balance my Twitter, so I follow people who are like Buzz Aldrin and Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, he still
And
gets attacked by people. People spam him because I've met him once, and he's like
Buzz
90
or Dwayne?
now. Buzz Aldrin,
Yeah.
the astronaut. And he's like
Yeah.
90 now. People come up to him and tweet at him like, "You're a liar. You never went to the moon." Blah blah blah. And it really hurts him. Like the biggest achievement of his life, he risked his life to go and do this. And people forget that the first set of Apollo astronauts were not Neil Armstrong and Buzz. The original set burned to death in the capsule because of a safety issue.
Yeah.
This was not a safe deal, man.
No.
So you imagine like risking your life in doing the most historically significant thing in aerospace history, coming back and then having some 20-year-old kid who's a flat earther come up to you and say, you didn't go to the moon, you're part of a government conspiracy, and Stanley Kubrick recorded you. And it was all just a big elaborate lie to get a leg up on the communists.
Yeah.
It's like,
No.
imagine that. It's just like the mentality and the arrogance and the narcissism and just the confirmation bias that gets a person to a point where they go at an American hero like that and then they attack them. It's a sad thing for society. It really is.
I used to travel around the world a lot, and the first time went to a lot of different countries, and I would hear some people in casual conversation, and they'll say stuff like, "Yeah, the Americans never went to the moon," and the first time I heard it, I just said, "What?" And then I realized there's quite a number of them. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's kind of like enculturated a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
well, I mean,
wait a
it's
second.
fine. There's plenty of people who believe in crazy things. There's the flat Earth movement and so forth. The ones that really
Look at us. We're crazy. We believe in cryptocurrency. Right now, we're the crazy.
No, I mean, that just makes economic sense. I mean,
To us,
on
it
the
does.
developed world, it says
Yeah.
everyone's like,
Sounds
why
money.
does business need blockchain? I'm like, does GM operate alone, or do they make cars with 100 partners? Oh, they have 100 partners. Like, isn't there commercial friction every time you add a partner? There's inefficiencies and trust issues and relationship issues that are introduced when you do that. They're like, yeah. Do you understand that the total cost of that is in the hundreds of billions of dollars for collectively across all businesses? The whole point of blockchain is mitigation of social friction. commercial friction between organizations so they can better trust and better automate and reduce waste, fraud, and abuse. So that's the business case. And it's not going to go away because everything we do, we have partners. SpaceX is partnered with NASA. These vaccine manufacturers are partnered with a massive supply chain. Any fraud there gets cascaded through and becomes billions of dollars of cost, waste, and abuse. Blockchain mitigates that. On the developing world, they need to buy it because they're being shut out of markets. When Starbucks wakes up and says, guys, we're only going to buy fair trade coffee, how does the farmer prove that? They need a better system to do that. And if they can't, they lose market access. So it's live or die. They have to upgrade to be able to succeed. And then occurs if cryptocurrencies, like, do capital controls exist? Do governments shut people out of their money? Does civil asset forfeiture exist? Is it the case that it's really expensive to move money around? Are there loans that are really expensive? Are there sovereign currencies that go default, like in Venezuela and Zimbabwe? Well, yeah. So shouldn't there be a marketplace for money, better money, that has better capabilities and more automated? It's more universal. It can be used for securities and commodities and representations of exotic forms of value, like intellectual property and so forth. Well, yeah, it's like, okay, then the industry deserves to exist. Yeah, but Bitcoin, well, who's been talking about Bitcoin? We're talking about the category. Okay, so you might not like a flavor of that category, but that's like walking into a candy store and saying, I don't like Jawbreakers. You're like, but yeah, but what about everything else in the candy store? Oh, the candy store is illegitimate because I don't like Jawbreakers. It's like, come on, man. It's like you have to acknowledge at least there's something there you like, and then that legitimizes the existence of the store, doesn't it? Similarly, there's at least something in cryptocurrencies you can get around and believe in. Maybe it's a stable coin. Maybe it's security tokens. Maybe it's tokenization of exotic assets like intellectual property or art, whatever it might be. You can hate everything else, but the candy store sells it. And so if you buy one thing at the candy store, you're a goddamn hypocrite if you say the candy store needs to be taken out. Come on now.
Charles, how do we get everybody to understand everything that you understand? That's the hard part.
Just tell them about the message. Candy store. That's all you got to do. And then they'll get it. People all right, Rick. It's been a lot of fun, man. I got to go. All right. Cheers.
It's been great. Thanks, man. See you around. Punching out.